I always believed my quiet life was secure until my HOA terminated my lease for a single noise complaint. Unaware of my secret, my father is a judge. Now, as I uncover a web of corruption and betrayal hidden behind seemingly harmless neighborly disputes. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe if you want more Karen and HOA stories. I always thought my life in our small neighborhood was calm and safe. That was until one quiet evening when I heard a knock at my door that changed everything. I opened the door to find Karen, the head of our homeowners association, standing there with a very serious look on her face. Her eyes were cold and her tone was sharp, and I felt my heart beat faster. I had never seen Karen so angry before. Karen told me that my lease was being terminated because of a noise complaint. I was shocked. I knew that a little noise here and there was normal in a busy place like ours. But Karen, who always acted as if she was the boss of everything, said that one complaint was enough to end my stay here. I tried to speak calmly, explaining that I always tried to be a good neighbor, but Karen just shook her head and walked away. In that moment, I felt confused and hurt, and I knew I had to find out more. The next morning, I woke up early with a sense of determination. I sat at my small table, my mind full of questions. Who had made the complaint? Was it really just one small noise, or was there something more behind it? I decided to start my own little investigation. I remembered that I had some old property, maps and legal books that my father had given me. Even though I was young, I had learned a lot from him about how rules work and how to find the truth in a maze of words. I pulled out the old maps and carefully looked over the lines that marked our neighborhood. I compared them with the rules in the legal books. I noticed some small marks that I had never seen before, tiny. Notes about property lines and quiet hours. My mind raced. Could these notes be used to show that the noise was not a big deal after all? I did not have all the answers yet, but I knew that my research would help me challenge what Karen had done. That very same day, I spoke with a few of my neighbors. I wanted to understand if anyone else had been bothered by the noise or by Karen's strict rules. Most of them told me that they too had seen Karen acting bossy. One neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, said she had heard laughter and music late at night in our hallway, but she brushed it off as normal. Another neighbor, Mr. Daniels, admitted that he once saw Karen arguing with another resident about a broken window. Their stories made me feel that I was not alone and that maybe there was more to Karen's actions than just keeping quiet. I listened to each story with care, taking mental notes and promising myself that I would look deeper. I went back home and began to write down everything I had learned. I made a list of the times when I heard noise and the times when I saw Karen. I even looked up old news, articles online about similar cases in other neighborhoods. Every bit of information added a piece to the puzzle. I felt like a detective, searching for clues in a world that was suddenly full of hidden secrets. My father had always told me that truth is like a treasure hidden under layers of dirt, and you must dig slowly but surely to find it. That evening, as the sun began to set, I sat in my living room with my laptop open. I started searching for more news about the HOA and found some articles that mentioned unfair rules and sudden lease terminations. I read about other people who had faced similar problems. Some had taken their cases to the media, and others had even fought in court. My fingers trembled with a mix of fear and hope. I wondered if I too could find a way to fight back, using the same methods of research and truth that I was learning. The next day, I decided to visit the local library. I knew that there were many books about property laws and the rights of tenants. In the quiet library, surrounded by rows of books, I found several useful ones. I took notes on legal terms and read about past cases where tenants had stood up against powerful associations. Every page I turned made me more certain that I could challenge Karen and her strict rules. I felt brave, even though a little voice inside me worried about the risks. After spending hours at the library, I took a break and walked around the neighborhood. I wanted to see if there were any signs that might help me understand the history of our community. I found a small park where children played, and I sat on a bench to rest. As I watched families enjoy the afternoon, I thought about how important it was for everyone to feel safe and respected. I promised myself that I would not let one person's anger ruin this sense of peace. Later that afternoon, I went back home with a notebook full of ideas and evidence. I started planning a way to talk to the HOA board. I knew I had to be careful and respectful, but I also needed to show that I was serious about finding the truth. I wrote down a list of questions and facts, using the property maps, legal books, and news articles I had gathered. I practiced speaking in front of the mirror, trying to sound calm and determined, just like my father had taught me. As night fell, I received an unexpected phone call from a friend named Marcus. He was a neighbor who also felt troubled by the way Karen handled things. Marcus told me that he had seen Karen arguing with another resident that same morning, and that she looked very angry. He said, "You must be careful. Karen does not like it when people ask too many questions. His warning made my heart beat a little faster, but I knew I could not let fear stop me. I thanked Marcus and hung up, feeling more determined than ever to stand up for myself and our community. I ended the night by looking at my father's old legal books one more time. I promised myself that I would use everything I had learned to show that a single noise complaint did not deserve the harsh punishment I was given. I felt a mix of sadness for what I had lost and hope for what I might gain if I fought back. Every piece of evidence, every note I had taken, was a step towards fairness. I realized that sometimes the truth was hidden in the smallest details, and I was ready to find them. Before I went to sleep, I wrote one last note in my journal. Tomorrow, I will meet with the HOA board and show them that I know my rights. I will use research, maps, and the truth to fight for what is right. With that promise, I closed my journal, knowing that my journey had only just begun. I felt the weight of the situation, but also the light of determination. My mind was full of questions about what would come next, and I knew that every step I took would bring me closer to the answers. And as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but wonder, what other secrets lie hidden in our quiet neighborhood? And how deep does Karen's power truly go? Right after the shocking visit from Karen, I felt a deep urge to learn more. I sat down at my small kitchen table with a notebook and a cup of warm tea. I had to know why a small noise complaint had led to such a harsh decision. In the first few seconds after that meeting, my heart pounded and I decided I could not sit still. I had to fight for what was right. I began by looking through my files at home. I gathered every document I could find about my lease, the property rules, and the records of past complaints. I made sure to write everything down in my neat handwriting. Each page of the file made me feel stronger, and I started to see patterns in the complaints. It was clear that Karen had a way of making a small issue seem like a big problem. I knew I had to understand every detail. Next, I decided to visit the local library. I spent hours reading books and searching the internet on property maps and local laws. I learned that the rules of our community were written long ago, and sometimes they were not as clear as they should be. I took careful notes on how property boundaries were drawn and how rules could be changed. I even found a few examples of other residents who had been treated unfairly by the HOA. Each new fact was like a small piece of a big puzzle. I kept thinking, if I can put these pieces together, maybe I can show everyone what is really happening. Every time I found a new clue, I felt a spark of hope. I even printed out some maps and articles to pin on my wall. One of the maps showed the layout of our community and the exact spots where our neighbors had their troubles. I marked these spots with bright red ink, making it clear where noise had been a problem and where it was just a normal sound of life. I remembered how the noise from Danny's loud music had caused the first stir. It was clear that while some neighbors made a little bit of noise, Karen had turned every small sound into a big issue. The more I learned, the more I felt a responsibility to speak up. I knew that I had to use the power of words to reach others. I started writing a simple story on my computer, telling the truth about what was happening in our community. I wanted to share my story with people who might be hurt by Karen's actions too. I typed slowly, choosing words that even a fourth grader could understand, hoping that everyone would see how unfair it was. I ended my story with a question, hoping it would spark discussion. Is it fair to punish someone for a small mistake when the truth is much bigger? I also took photos of the documents and maps I had collected. I wanted to show others the evidence that I had gathered. Every photo was a reminder that the rules should not be twisted to hurt innocent people. I planned to send these photos to a local news channel. I believed that if the media could see the evidence, they might help me spread the word about Karen's unfair ways. Before I sent my story out, I decided to meet with Marcus, a good friend and neighbor who had always been supportive. We met at a small park near our community center. The trees were tall and offered a bit of shade on that bright day. Marcus listened carefully as I explained all that I had learned. He nodded slowly, his eyes showing that he understood the seriousness of the matter. We need to make sure everyone knows what is really going on, he said. His voice was gentle but firm, and his words gave me even more courage. With Marcus by my side, we planned our next steps. We decided to gather more evidence from other neighbors who had been treated unfairly by Karen and the HOA. Marcus had a way of getting people to talk. In the next few days, he visited a few residents, and they shared their own small stories of trouble. One neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, admitted that she had also received a warning for something as simple as a dog barking in the yard. Another, Mr. Lewis, said he had been told to cut down a small bush that was in his way, even though it had been there for years. Each story added more weight to my own findings. Every time we met with another neighbor, I took notes and asked more questions. I wanted to know why the rules were so strict for some and so lenient for others. It soon became clear that Karen had a personal interest in keeping things just the way she wanted them. I kept my voice calm when I talked to everyone. Even though inside I felt a mix of anger and sadness, I knew that anger would not solve anything. Only careful words and clear facts could help me win this fight. Late one night, while I was reviewing all my notes, I found a hint that there was even more to Karen's actions. There was a piece of paper with a scribbled phone number and a few words that seemed to suggest a hidden meeting about the new rules for our community. My heart raced as I read it again and again. Who had written this? Was it someone from the HOA? Or was it another neighbor who was tired of being treated unfairly? I decided I had to find out more, but I also knew I must be careful. Every new fact was a step into the unknown, but I was ready to take that step. As the days passed, I spent many early mornings and late nights gathering more evidence. I visited the local courthouse to learn about legal rights and protections for tenants. The clerk there was kind and explained things in simple words. I learned about the legal steps I could take if I felt my rights had been violated. This knowledge made me feel like I was carrying a powerful tool with me. I felt like I had the strength of my father's lessons in law, even if he was not there in person. The more I dug into the legal details, the more I understood that I had a strong case. I found rules that showed how a single noise complaint should not lead to something as serious as terminating a lease. With each new document I discovered, my heart swelled with hope. I began to write a detailed report, carefully noting every irregularity I found. I knew that if I shared this report with the right people, it could force the HOA to listen and change their ways. One sunny morning, as I was leaving the library with a stack of important papers, I saw Karen across the street. She looked angry, and her eyes met mine for a brief moment. It was as if she knew what I was doing. That brief moment of eye contact sent a chill down my spine, but it also reminded me that I could not stop now. I had to keep going, no matter how hard it became. Every new discovery was a small victory. But I also knew that Karen would not let things go easily. I had to stay one step ahead, and I made sure to check every detail twice. I planned a meeting with a local news reporter, someone who had a reputation for fairness and truth. I wanted to show the reporter my maps, my photos, and the stories of my neighbors. I believed that if the truth was shown to the public, the power of the community could stand up to Karen and the HOA. As I prepared for that meeting, my mind raced with questions. Would the reporter believe my story? Could the truth really bring justice to our small community? I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I had done everything I could. I had gathered proof, written down every detail, and listened to the voices of my neighbors. I was not alone in this fight. Every step of my journey made me feel more determined and a bit braver. I remembered the first moment I heard the news about the lease termination, and it felt like a long time ago. Now each piece of evidence I collected was like a brick in the road to a fair and just solution. I felt like I was building a bridge that would connect the silent voices of my neighbors with the truth that needed to be heard. Now, with the news meeting on the horizon and the weight of my research in my hands, I stood at a crossroads. I knew that the next move was crucial. Would the evidence I had gathered be enough to challenge Karen's authority, or would her overbearing power silence us all? I took one last look at my wall of maps and documents, and I felt a quiet strength rise within me. The fight was far from over, and every moment brought new hope and new challenges. I ended my day with a promise to myself. I would not back down. I would continue to use my calm voice, my careful research, and my simple, clear words to tell the story of our community. No one should be punished unfairly, and I was determined to prove that a single noise complaint did not tell the whole truth. The next steps were coming fast, and I was ready to meet them head on. The journey was just beginning, and even as I closed my notebook, I could feel the suspense building. There were more secrets to uncover, and soon, the real story would be told. My heart was pounding, yet I had a determined mind. I had spent days gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I searched through old property maps and legal books in the small-town library, all the while thinking about Karen's unjust actions. Every noisy night from the neighbors, every harsh word from the HOA had led to this moment. I knew I had to stand my ground. I had a secret weapon, knowledge. With each page I turned, I uncovered details that showed how the rules were twisted to punish me and others. My father's advice echoed in my mind, reminding me that truth and fairness always win in the end. I was ready to expose Karen's wrongdoings, no matter the cost. The morning after my research, I woke up with a spark of hope and a plan that felt as clear as day. I knew I had to show the world what Karen had done. I met with my friend Marcus at a local cafe, where we laid out our strategy quietly over warm cups of tea. Marcus had always been a voice of reason, and his support lifted my spirits. Together we reviewed the property maps that revealed odd changes in boundaries, and irregular notes in the records. These details, though small, pointed to possible favoritism and misuse of power by the HOA. I also found legal cases that explained how such abuse should be handled in court. Every new discovery made my resolve stronger. I could see a path forward to challenge Karen and her unfair practices. I felt like I was finally piecing together a puzzle that had haunted me for too long. That afternoon, I set out to gather even more evidence. I visited the town hall, where I studied the property records and maps in detail. I learned that the HOA had approved changes that seemed unfair and one-sided. I took clear photos of the old maps and compared them with the new ones, noting the shifts that seemed to favor certain residents. I also made copies of legal documents that showed how such decisions could be challenged in court. Every piece of evidence gave me more confidence that Karen's actions were not right. I left the town hall with a folder full of documents and a mind full of ideas. I knew I had to share this evidence with others to make a real change. My heart beat faster with each new discovery, and I promised myself that I would not back down. That evening, I turned on the local news and saw a report about strange complaints in our community. The reporter mentioned that some residents were unhappy with the HOA's new rules. I saw Karen's name mentioned as the one who had pushed for strict measures. My mind raced as I realized that the media was starting to notice our troubles. I decided to send copies of my findings to the local newspaper. I wanted everyone to know the truth about how rules could be twisted to harm good people. I wrote a simple email that explained my story and attached clear photos of the maps and documents. Even though I was nervous about what might happen next, I knew that bringing light to the issue was the right thing to do. Every second felt like a step toward justice. The next day, I received a reply from the newspaper editor. They were interested in my story and asked for an interview. I felt a mix of excitement and fear. I knew that speaking out might bring more trouble, especially with Karen watching every move. Still, I arranged to meet the reporter in a quiet park, where the early morning sun gave a sense of calm. I explained everything clearly, showing my photos, maps, and documents. I spoke about the unfair treatment and how the rules were used to silence residents like me. My words were simple and honest, aiming to reach the hearts of everyone who listened. The reporter nodded thoughtfully, promising that the truth would be told. I left the park feeling hopeful, even though I knew the battle was far from over. Later that day, Karen stepped up her game. I heard whispers among the residents that she had called a meeting with the HOA board. I decided it was time to face her directly. I walked into the meeting room with my folder of evidence in hand. The room was filled with tension and quiet murmurs. Karen sat at the head of the table, her eyes cold and unyielding. I stood calmly and began to speak. I talked about the strange changes in the property maps, the irregular records, and the legal rules that were meant to protect us. My voice did not waver. Even when Karen tried to interrupt with her angry remarks, I held up my photos and documents for everyone to see. The board members exchanged uneasy looks as they realized the truth could not be hidden forever. In that moment, I felt both fear and strength, knowing that I was fighting for fairness and justice. After the meeting, I stepped outside into the cool evening air. I could feel the eyes of my neighbors on me, some filled with hope and others with uncertainty. I knew that the battle was not over yet, and that Karen would not easily give up her hold over the community. In the quiet of the night, I reviewed all the evidence once more. I planned my next steps carefully, deciding to contact a trusted lawyer who could help me understand the legal side of things even better. I also thought about reaching out to more neighbors to see if they had any similar experiences with the HOA. My heart was steady as I promised myself to keep fighting for what was right. I was ready for whatever came next, knowing that every step brought us closer to a fair community.